date. We're architects, BHC. We're here on Long Island, over in Melville, and our specialty is public libraries. I think at last count, we've probably worked on about 230, 240 libraries across the Northeast, but probably the majority of them are here on Long Island. I like to tell people at every exit on the LIE, there is a library our firm has done, whether it's one we've renovated or a new library. And some examples over in Southampton, the Rogers Library, the Huntington Library, which was an addition, renovation, Cold Spring Harbor, even some projects over in New Jersey, the Cherry Hill Library. One of the things I think is interesting to point out is our approach to designing these libraries is that we recognize that every community is unique. And your community here on Shelter Island is probably more unique than most of them in many different ways. And what we really strive to do is to design our libraries so they belong in the community, both architecturally, but also in the way they function and the type of services and the programs they offer, because we've also found that every community uses their library for different reasons. We actually did a project in Northport where we did an addition to the main Northport library, and then we did a new library down in East Northport, and both were completely different because even it's in the same school district, the Northport Library was more of a research library. It was a place where people came and did work after school, where people used as a home office, where the East Northport Library was more a place to get a paperback for the weekend and more popular. One has a cafe, the other one has a different type of an amenity. So one of the things we spent a lot of time with Terry and the board and the library here was just really starting by learning how your community uses this library and the type of spaces that would be important, and how can we structure something here that's unique and really is geared towards exactly what is needed here on Shelter Island. So we're excited to share some of our early ideas. As Terry said, it's still a work in progress. We're certainly looking for input and feedback. As finished as these drawings look, they are still napkin sketches to some degree. So we're, if anybody has any ideas or thoughts or sees anything that they'd like to see incorporated or thought of differently, we're happy to take those ideas to heart. And we're looking to, make sure that this is exactly what, Shelter Island needs. No. Figured you
All right.
Introduce yourself.
Good evening. I'm Derek Natz. I'm a project executive for Park East Construction. We were hired as a construction management firm for this project. So in the preliminary phases, we'll be doing certain aspects, and if it moves on to construction, different aspects. A little bit about Park East. We've been in the industry for 33 years. Almost solely public works between libraries, school districts, and fire departments. We've successfully constructed over $3 billion within that field. Almost all of it is Suffolk County and Nassau County. Very little of our work is out of state. So some of the things that Park East will do at the beginning, and we're currently working on, our estimating team, is verifying the project budget. We hope by the next meeting, which I think is going to be in January, that we'll have a proposed number for the project and what the schematic designs, what we see them as with the most current and up-to-date pricing, as well as escalation for when it's projected to be built. Attend public and workshop meetings. Like this evening, we'll be coming to every workshop meeting for design purposes, and we'll be coming to public meetings to give updates as that design process progresses. Value-added options, we'll be working with BHC to see what can be implemented to save money. As Todd mentioned, it's a unique area. The access with the ferries to get to the island, all that has to be taken into consideration when building on Shelter Island. Constructability analysis over the next couple months. Our team will be going through the library, looking above the ceilings, looking at crawl spaces, looking at the connection point where the new addition connects to the existing building, making sure that there's no unforeseens to limit change orders and problems during the construction process. Those are the items that will be done over the next couple months. The rest of the items would happen post project.
Thanks. One thing I just wanted to point out, because you'll see in a moment as Chris walks through the design, is, very early on, we made a decision to create a design that looked like it was part of an original building. We didn't want this to look like something that was just stuck on. We wanted this building to look as if it had always been there like that. And I just wanted to point out the one example, if ever you're up in Sitawk at the Emma Clark Library, it was an old historic building. It was an original house, which had been added on with a modern addition. And then we were brought on to do a third edition. And when we did it, we sort of wrapped the modern building, tied it back into the historic building, where if you go there now, you'd be hard pressed to tell which was the old original building, which is the new building, because it really seamlessly ties it all together. And that was also one of our driving goals here, was to create a design that seamlessly ties the new addition together with the existing building. So Chris, you want to?
Sure. So, as we've met with,
I'm going to interrupt for a second. Can everybody see this, or do you want me to turn the light off so you can see a little closer?
I can see it.
Can everybody see? Okay, good. All right.
okay. So, like Todd was saying, we wanted to work off of the existing building, and the building you have here now, structurally, is in good shape, right? And we can work with this building, update, renovate this space, and also, as the other program amounts came into play, as we were reviewing and understanding how much space we did need, we can add on to the west of your current library. So we'll go through 7 of the things, and most of it is basically a reflection of those 5, 6 items that Terry had covered earlier. We'll start with the entry into the building here. All right, we've created a new lobby, and what is happening here is, we could still use the more ceremonial entrance off of the main street, but what we found out is a lot of people just use the side entrance into the library. So we figured, well, we can create a covered entry there, we can create a vestibule so that patrons and staff could come in that way. And as you get into this space, we'll have it sort of partitioned off. Again, like we were saying, the conversations that are happening in the noisy part of the space will be closed off from those spaces where the adults are, where they need to be quieter. And those noisy functions would, of course, be your circulation desk. Up front you'd have all your new books, your AV collection, and one of the things that we want to incorporate in is a small cafe for you here at the library. So there's something local. I can come to the library, I can grab a cup of coffee or muffin, and I can go do my work. I can sit into the quiet spaces and go back there. But as we move then forward into that space, we want to see more quiet pieces, and we have bring a bunch of reading tables in. We want quiet study spaces, so meant for one person to go in there, study, for whatever exam they may have, or tutoring that may happen there, or if somebody comes in, I need to have a space I can just do a quick meeting in. So it's a quiet study, small meeting space. Yes?
Can I just ask, it looks like there's a partition between the lobby and the quiet studies area. How do you get from the lobby to the quiet studies area?
Well, it's not showing well on the screen here. This is meant to be a sliding door. So as you walk up to it, it would automatically slide open and then close behind you. So there's always, you never have to worry about it being left open. And that way we can at least keep the 2 spaces separate. And it's just one approach to doing that, all right? Some of the other pieces that we wanted to have here, we wanted to have a smaller, mid-sized meeting room where, maybe 6 to 8 people could gather, go in that space, and whether it's a meeting between small group of people. If it's somebody who's locally that needs to have a meeting with someone far away, we could set that meeting up for that. And then as you really get further into your library, we get into the new addition that sits out here. Really quiet spaces, a nice, whether it's a fireplace or not, but a lounge space where you can grab a book off of the book stacks, sit down and just relax and have a nice view out into the field there. Also a periodical around, so you'd have all of your current editions and just catch up on what's going on around, local paper, stuff like that.
One thing that you'll see on this floor and the other floors, we're also making the library a lot more accessible. Not only does the library have to meet the Americans with Disabilities Act, which are some challenges here with the existing building, we also want to make it more accessible by providing more space between everything. So everything's not as cramped. There's a little more space within the shelving for people to browse. The shelves are not as packed as they are currently. The reading areas have a little bit more breathing room between them, so that it's a much more comfortable space to be in than currently exists. And you don't have to push all the furniture and books in the children's room to another side of the room in order to have a bigger meeting. The library will accommodate that now.
There's two things about this as well. We're not losing any books. We're keeping all the books. These guys have been very patient because from day one I've said, this is a book library. People read books on this island, so we're not shrinking the collection. This is going to fit our collection.
Yes.
And I will take the blame for the fireplace because I'm very practical, but I just keep saying the perfect library has a fireplace you can read in front of. So that's my little vanity thing. So you give me just be patient with me on that one. But I think it's going to be really beautiful.
A gas fireplace.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm not chopping wood.
With glass doors.
Is it possible to see a schematic, as you've shown here, of what currently exists? I live here year-round, and for 6 years, trying to imagine what is with what can be. Do you have a schematic that shows what is the case
Your
now?
existing plan of the building there.
Yeah, the plan of the building.
Well, not necessarily in this presentation, but highlighting in color. I think as we get further into the presentation, it'll help define how we're placing this new piece with the old piece
The changes.
and how it sits on the site
Or
and
expansions.
overall.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
But generally it's the yellow
the shaded
area
yellow
or
area.
The shaded blue area is really where your new building begins, back in here from this point
That's the
over.
new building.
That's your
Yes.
new
Is
footprint.
that on the lot over here?
Actually,
It's on
to
the lot over
back
here.
behind you
The Bateman lot right there.
When you have your.
Yeah, where we have the tent. It'll go,
I got the bigger,
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if this helps, but it's a little model. What's shown here in gray is the existing library. The front door is over here. This is the town square, the circle, and the new addition will happen in the back there in white. And the parking lot will be over here. One of the reasons we think it would be nice to also have an entry into the library there, because it'll be a lot more convenient from the parking lot to get in. It also brings you more into the middle of the library, so you're not going into the end and then having to walk all the way through.
Are you expanding the parking?
The parking, it'll change the configuration of it, and then based upon the square footage of the year, you'll have enough parking stalls that are required. So, my hand, I don't have it right now, but I believe it does expand slightly using, we're not gonna pave everything, but you'll have overflow into that field that the library currently uses over here. So we didn't want to take that field, and we'll show you in later slides, and develop it as more.
I'm bringing it up because the Historical Society met with some Strum and Drang about parking.
Right.
So I'm bringing it up now, so.
Okay, we'll take a look at that, but right now, the current size in this building, we have enough parking to support that building right now. Yes, sir.
There are 40-some artists on Shelter Island, and we always are looking for places to show our work.
Mm-hmm.
And here, we have a nice exhibition space, but it's fairly small. but they're very generous about letting us put work up. Would there be any places in the new addition
Absolutely.
where more work could be hung?
Well, that's a perfect segue, Chris, to move to the next slide.
So, here,
The word gallery down there.
so in keeping with the library, we don't have a ton of space to go on here, but working within a footprint, it's also important that these spaces have multi-functional capabilities, right? And one of the ways we look to arrange things is that if there's a space within the building that can be shared by two groups, the idea of having a new YA library that will be dedicated for them down here, their own separate space, and a children's library, but they can also share a program room. While the children in YA are not here during the day, that room could be used by adults for a program. So making more multi-function into it. And as we come down, here's our elevator over here, right? This is the existing elevator and the stair. Some of you may have come down into the library. We open up into a gallery here. So there'll be an open hallway there to get you down and walk down a few steps here into a gallery. So that gallery, we could have art track placed around, right, within just that space itself. Also to serve as a function for where groups can meet in between. So if there's a long program and there's an intermission, or if we need to gather while somebody's preparing something inside, you can all gather in the gallery. So it's a dual function space. And then within our large meeting room here, and that's roughly double the size of what we have here now, okay? We can take that, accommodate a large program. There could be places also to hang art within there, but bringing in a divisible door here too. So you see how you've divided this meeting room space from the children's library. Well, we're going to use something similar to that so you can have two programs going on. So it could be one program or two rooms for patrons. And then some of the support spaces that find themselves around it. But having that all then open onto, we have a terrace there now, but then creating a larger terrace down at a lower elevation on that side of the building for outdoor functions. Yes.
Just to be clear, this is the level that we are now on.
Yes.
Right.
But what we are doing is where the new addition exists, we're going to drop the floor there down a few feet. Part of the problem is the headroom here for a big meeting room. It's very tight. So what we want to do is create some more headroom. So as Chris mentioned, there'll be a few steps down, but there'll also be a platform lift for people with wheelchairs who need better access. And then both the meeting room, the gallery, and all the space over here, all of that is going to open out to that outdoor terrace. So it'll also provide this other meeting space, this other place to gather outdoors. If you're having a lecture inside in the meeting room, you could gather outside in the terrace before going into the lecture or after the lecture. It also gives us the opportunity to bring natural daylight into the lower levels, because with that terrace there, we could put windows along that entire facade, get daylight down into the gallery, the meeting room, have it spill into the YA room, and the children's room will have, windows into their space as well.
Are you talking about windows as well?
Yes, yes.
Oh. Where are you going to put this, for example? Where are you going to have the focal point of the meeting room? It looks as though it's all windows and doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good point. It probably, hasn't been really completely thought out. Looking at this plan, it probably belongs more in the middle there, so maybe there's an extra window that shouldn't be there. But we need to lay out that space and how it would be, furnished. As Chris mentioned, it's also a space that's hopefully going to be divided in two. Maybe these storage closets, the doors belong on the opposite side, where that could be a screen, that could be a screen. I think that's a good question, and probably something we haven't completely gotten to that level of detail yet.
Yeah. So, I think we go to the next slide, but some ideas.
Go back to Chris, because there was that other
yeah,
one.
there's another one here. So the other piece of this in how the library, it's a very traditional in its approach, right? The aesthetic of your building. And I think, you know, we want to make these spaces warm and inviting. So, you know, as you go into the main library, it's sort of a library living room. There's these tables that, you know, are made out of wood. There could be table lamps that sit on that you can plug into if you had a device, or you just turn on your light. And then some comfortable seating around a fireplace, but just really flooded with natural light in that space. So very, very welcoming, inviting you further into the library. The quiet study spaces, and I think it's the same thing also with YA, as Todd had mentioned, getting that natural light across the space. We don't necessarily want to build walls everywhere that are solid. So twofold, we get sunlight through those spaces that can sit on the northern side of the building. It also allows the staff here not to have 5 people looking around. One person can sit there and see what's happening in your quiet study space, what's going on in the main library, and also have a visual connection back up to the front of the library by the circulation desk. And then, you know, not much there, but it's a small meeting room that could be configured, you know, with tables and chairs, or just chairs, or nothing. It could be just standing room and a program goes on there. It could be a small yoga program or something. But just inspiration of what we, you know, could have here or potentially bring to this library.
These are actual examples of other libraries. We've done the Bayshore Library, the Cold Spring Harbor Library, Shelter Rock Library. They're all different communities, different styles in design. Cold Spring Harbor and Bayshore are probably closer in style, I think, to what we'd be looking to do here. Go ahead, Chris.
This is another detail, but I heard you're gonna have a lot more lamps than just one little lamp on.
Yes, so yes. No, there'll be
With USB.
lighting and, you know,
USB.
all that'll be.
Yeah, oh yeah, there'll be
type of
definitely
lighting
plugins, yeah.
To keep things very efficient and energy costs down.
Look at the children's.
But it, you know, again, of idea of what we've done in some other libraries, an outdoor space that's, again, inviting. There's some landscaping, a nice surface out there. They show some benches here, but it could be a dropping of different cafe tables that sit around with umbrellas that can go up in the event that it's sunny on that side, on the south side. A children's library that's vibrant and has, you know, things that are interesting for children, furniture that's scaled to their size. And then, you know, like the YA library, what's going to populate there? They may take that room, that room there has shelving that's on wheels. So they can take, and when they need to do like gaming night, or if they want to watch a movie in there, they can slide the shelves over to the side and put a program up, and they can all sit on the floor in there or on soft chairs. And a large meeting room, which is kind of the same what we have here, but the idea of, you know, giving everybody more space, and with a little bit more space, you can have a little bit more distance if you needed to in a situation. And then we come to the site plan. So the other piece here, we don't, and I think we want to be respectful of the existing architecture, your site, and the community. So we took and created a sufficient sized building there, but the green space that was there is very important still, is to keep that buffer there. So the new building is not on top of the house that's right there, that's a residence right there. The other way we also looked at this is you have some very mature trees here on site. We don't want to take and come in and have to cut down trees. We would want to retain those larger established trees here because they're part of the history that's here, and there's no reason to take them down, especially if we can work around them. And recreating again the flow around the library. Currently you have a driveway that sits in this area here to bring you around to the parking that's up here. Well, we can recreate that. So if somebody comes in off of Ferry Road and they want to leave on Bateman over there, they can do that, or vice versa. It just helps with flow around the site, and then keep that open field there for when you have very large programs and you need the additional parking. But 90% of the time it remains a green grass field that's very, yes.
Do you have a percentage increase on the parking, or at least a the number of spaces that will increase? Because many times we come here and there's no places to be had.
Right. So we're adding roughly another 4,000 and change square footage to your building. right? And the existing building is about 6,000 square feet. So I'd say taking what was required for this building, which is not here on site now, we're taking that number and, as a rough reference, increasing it by 40% and still fitting it within your site. And that's based on local zoning, all right, incorporates in the codes that we have to have for accessible parking also, the number of stalls that you would need based on that count. Beyond that, you know, there's only so much we can accommodate on site, but we've pushed it as far as we can go on your site here to maximize your building and your parking.
It seems to me that we're not adding any parking spaces. Is that just a fact?
Oh, no, we are adding parking.
How many, like I'm counting like 31.
It's probably
Parking.
from, okay, the parking right now ends about here. So in there, so it's gonna go all the way over here, and then these will be banked. You know, people park here on the grass anyway, so they're gonna bank, if we can, if the town allows it, bank those parking lots, parking spaces so that people can drive up there and park if they need to.
Right.
So, but yeah, there's probably 8 or 9 and 3, maybe 11 extra parking spaces.
I'm just thinking, like, I understand the desire, and I share it, to retain the green field, you know, for view and so forth. But with 4,000 extra square feet and a much more kind of vibrant environment around here, the library would be attracting a lot more people for bigger events. If you put a grass driveway parking lot where that says open field to rematch, or remain, you know, if that was, you know, those
Interlock pavers.
those pavers with grass growing in between it, I think you would retain both the green when there aren't cars that park there, and people would be able to park there even in the rain and the snow.
Yeah, we're doing that on another project right now. It's a true grid. It's almost like a
That's what I'm
plastic
talking
mat
about.
that goes underneath it.
Yeah.
You don't even see it. And
That's what I'm talking
you can
about.
drive fire trucks on it. So that's exactly what we would take a zone in here, you know, the depth of a parking space, so that if cars park there, they're not creating mud, they're not chewing up the grass, but it's maintaining it as grass.
And then you can then walk onto a paved surface. So
That's what I'm talking
I guess, yeah, there is that, where's that line, and we played with that. But this isn't, you know, this isn't the final solution on it, but it's a good point, is.
No, but I think within
parking do you need?
that length, you could pick up another, you know,
25.
20 spaces, or, yeah.
I had another question, and it has to do with the septic system. So I know that there's a proposal in the town to create a municipal sewer system, and the library is a partner in that. Is there space here, should that thing not become developed, where you'd be able to put in an IA system on the site?
Well, the current cesspool's over here. So I suspect that if we did put the IA system in,
Right in there.
it would be in here, so it wouldn't have anything to do with the expansion.
Right.
That's what I think. No, wait, I'm sorry, it's right here. So,
So you'd have room around the corner.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I think, you know, the site will accommodate that additional loading from this building, even though the amount of bathrooms may not be increased by, you know, you have 2 now, I think we have 3 or 4 proposed in this one. But we do have the site to accommodate the flow off of the building itself.
and the town has been in discussion with us about partnering with that system if it should go through. They know that this is something we're interested in. These guys know that that's something we're interested in, and it's kind of how it all falls. We're not really sure how, you know,
Yeah.
when that's all gonna happen, but we're all aware of it on both sides.
And I believe Derek's team is gonna put in their budget, you know, maybe the worst case scenario of the two, so that, you know, as a fallback, if we have to put a system on site, we'll have the budget number for that. But if we get the opportunity to connect to a different system that's less expensive, we'll take advantage of that as well.
All right.
Speaking of septic restrooms,
Yes.
are they all, where are they?
There's 2
There's a
downstairs
few
and
we're showing, you know, oops, let me get this far. Up here, we want to take the existing location and create an accessible bathroom. All these bathrooms will be accessible. On the lower level, I'm hitting the wrong button. One is to have a dedicated toilet for the children, so that family, it's more of a family toilet than anything. And then over on the end over here, where we have a large meeting room, there will be 2 unisex toilets that would be there. All right.
And they'll all work. Like the one that's not working right now.
They're all accessible, right? So if you have a wheelchair or if you're semi-ambulatory, you'll have enough space in there to get around. All right? Yes, sir.
How many square feet of new meeting space are being added, and how many square feet exists now?
Is it double this?
That's part of this one.
Okay.
Part one of the question. The second part is, how many meeting spaces will you have that can be used simultaneously, because you're talking about the visible areas?
Right.
So what does this room accommodate right now?
It can accommodate 75 maybe.
Okay, so this is about 1,000 square feet or 900. It's probably going to double in size the main meeting room, the one downstairs, which could be divided in 2. So you could have 2 meetings going on down there. At the same time, the children's and young adults will have their own meeting room, which right now they have to use this room if they're doing a story hour or a children's program. So you could have 3 programs going on downstairs, and then that small meeting room up on the main level could be the 4th meeting room that could accommodate as Chris said, maybe a small group of 6 people, 8 people. And then the quiet study rooms, which currently don't exist. I guess you could look at them as small meeting rooms, but they're for tutoring or for individuals to just study by themselves or do research where they want absolute quiet. But it's one of the focal points of the library is creating all these different size and different types of, meeting spaces.
And the divisible spaces, I assume you'll budget the appropriate soundproofing.
Oh yeah,
in the divisible.
The wall it'll be a much better wall than this, but the wall that divides it will be the equivalent of a solid wall. It will have a sound rating like a catering hall, where you could have a band playing on one side and not hear them on the other. Yes?
What are the dimensions of the roof, the outside dimensions?
The outside dimensions, I believe it's about 40 foot wide by, I think, 80 feet long. 40 by 80. It was 40 off the back of the building, 80 feet in length, east by north-south.
Can I ask a question about the interior? I know that you've got dedicated for the children, the young adults. I know that there was talk about dedicated an area for senior citizens. Is that somewhere in these plans that we could see, or is that down the road? Or does it exist?
It wasn't a dedicated area for senior citizens necessarily. It was the area by the fireplace, the quiet reading areas would be places that our seniors, you would not have children up there. It would be the places where our seniors could read quietly by the fireplace. We have our guys that come in to read the paper and they're sitting at a table, we're all talking, and so there'll be that little quiet space, those 2 spaces in the room with the books there. So that would be I don't know, all of you may not know this, some of you may know this, the Senior Citizens Foundation very generously has pledged $75,000 towards our building project. If the vote passes in June, they will give us $75,000 to go through towards the construction, and that just went out in their fundraising letter. And as part of that, when I spoke to them, I said this would be a perfect area, and we put like a little something on the wall that would say this is a place that is has been supported by the Senior Citizens Foundation. So I think that's what
for the fireplace then.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to call it the Senior Citizens Foundation fireplace as opposed to Terry's fireplace, which is called. So, but if you go out. Derek very kindly came at 6:30 in the morning and met with Don Dunning, and there's some lines out there that show you where the building will go, and it's literally right across the existing one-way driveway there. right where the telephone pole is. So you can go out and you can look and see kind of where the building would go to. You could go and see that and see kind of, it doesn't, we didn't measure out the whole thing, but you can see some paint on the grass that didn't blow.
Did you say that's a one-way driveway?
The one right now is, not this one. That was the request, is that I feel this driveway is kind of dangerous, especially with the kids running across it. So to have a two-way driveway was gonna be a huge improvement.
And don't be confused, because there's additional paint out there that shows the driveway. So the first mark is the
marker is
building, the second two is the driveway. Yes.
Yeah, I have a question for Terry. Obviously, COVID changed all our lives. Maybe I came a few minutes late, but could you mention, maybe you don't have the numbers, but before COVID, the use of the library, and obviously during COVID, we just, everything dropped down to the bottom, but do you have any idea of like how the library's changed now in the last year and a half or so? Are the numbers similar to what they were?
We're going
before?
back up. I can't tell you exactly. I will be able to tell you in January what 2022 was, but by 2021 we were back. We went up to 90,000. By 2020,
this is visitors in the building?
People coming in and out of the door, yeah. So basically what we do is we have an electric eye, you come in the door, you go out the door, we divide it in half at the beginning of the month. So in 2021, it had gone back up to the mid-70s, and then we've been busy this year. Of course, also, we do things in a hybrid manner there, so people that might have been coming to a program might do hybrid. I don't think we'll do that forever. I mean, I'm hoping if we have a place people feel more comfortable, that there's some air. I mean, there are people that will not come into this room. We do have a ventilation system, but there are not windows and it's not open, and so people are not that comfortable coming here, so they come to us on Zoom instead.
But you're still reaching the people, even if
Oh,
they're
yeah.
at home, so that's important.
Yeah, no,
That's sort of a silver lining in some ways.
Right. Actually, in the last year, we compare month to month, year to year. Some of our smaller programs have bigger attendance because people have joined groups because they connected during COVID. So, and then things like, last year we probably had 500 people come through here to get a vaccination. And what I did was take these tables and make a little square and put a chair behind it for the nurse or the pharmacist. So it wasn't very private, but people came through to do that. All the people coming in for passports, people coming in for notary. So we have pretty steady, I think heavy traffic for this small place.
A secondary question?
Yes.
I used to come to the library every 2 weeks to get a book to read. But now I converted to I read things digitally.
Right.
So I still use the library.
Right.
But I'm not taking books. Do you have any numbers as far as the number of patrons that are digital versus taking books out?
Digital during the pandemic was going up 25% a month. And the actual physical book takeout circulation went way down.
Sure.
That's sneaking back up again.
Okay.
This is a physical book reading island, and I think it's because a lot of us are older, and that's how we like to read books. Right. We will of course always provide the digital books, but our new books go out the door, our old books go out the door. Depending on the display right now, all of our biographies are going out because there's a pretty good biography display right now. So we're still physical book readers here. Not like it probably was at one point, but it's still something that is popular. We also have a great staff that will recommend something and probably make you take 5 books out.
It's not through the building, it's sort of tied in, I think.
It is. It's part of the deal. Yeah, right. Definitely.
I think there's another good point there, in a sense of what COVID has gone through and done to libraries and just done to public spaces in general. With this building, your systems, your HVAC systems, and how that circulates, the filtration we have on those systems. The intent is that we want to make these buildings as healthy as possible. So everything here then gets replaced and redesigned, and we bring in, air changes as we need to bring in. It's introducing, UV lighting inside the ducts to kill off airborne stuff, all right? But then again, just being green in a sense of the materials we're going to use. We want to use stuff that's has a life cycle or can be reused again, recycled. Bringing in wood tone type things of, a floor, if it has wood grain in it, it's called biophilic architecture, and it just helps create a more welcoming and healthy environment for your library.
Why don't we go to the renderings, Chris?
Sure. So I think these are not, preface it, this is not the final building, but an image of something that your library could be. And, our take on it is to create a new addition and bring in some maybe elements that kind of mimic the existing, maybe reinterpret them, but also tie yourself back into your existing architecture aesthetic.
Yeah, we want to use the same vocabulary, same materials, we want to match the brick. But, some of the elements on the new addition, the large sort of bay windows, we want to bring more daylight into the building. So we want the new addition to have more windows than the existing library, which has smaller punched windows, and it does. So this is a view in the back. You can see sort of the terrace down below. The windows that sort of wrap the gallery bring daylight into the lower level.
Can I ask a question about that level? And this came up in an earlier design that we had looked at. If there's no ramp into that children's area, then everybody who's going into the children's area who is using a wheelchair or is pushing a stroller or using a walker, go through that gallery onto the thing and then up. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is there a way to work around that by having a ramp that goes up to that higher terrace? I'm just wondering.
Yeah, we could look at that.
Yeah,
Having the terrace itself have a ramp. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to slope so
Yeah.
that there's a path for people to go
No, that's a great idea.
the kids area.
Yep.
It's just, well, I was thinking about it.
Good.
Just on point here, I'm having trouble visualizing where this new addition goes. Is it on the other side of the driveway from Bateman?
It's where the driveway, it basically sits right where the driveway is.
The field on the other side?
Yes.
Okay.
This is faces out onto Bateman.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just another, view of how that comes together. So, a head-on view of your existing architecture into that piece, maintaining the large tree that's out here.
This is facing Bateman.
You're standing on Bateman looking at the library from here.
Okay.
And it looks also like you're anticipating some significant excavation in order to get daylight into the lower level.
Of children's,
I
yes.
know.
Yeah, we want to bring
Library?
the
We'd like
grade down a
to
bit.
open that up and bring some daylight into the children.
Good.
Wow.
And then your north side of your library, again, we're still working with the site. We don't want to change it, so you're going to, we want to work with it, and it allows us to bring light again in onto the north side of that addition, keeping the trees that are there for your library, and then working the parking lot back into that sloped area.
Are you gonna give Terry a big office space?
People have been in my office. I think they're gonna give me a closet, which would be really good.
Yeah, closet and,
With a fireplace.
With a fireplace in the closet.
this time around. All right.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead, you go.
How long you think construction would take, and what do we do during that time?
There's a few alternatives to that. So it depends if we're going to phase it. If it was a straight construction project without phasing, I would estimate it about 16 months. If we're phasing it to keep certain areas usable during construction, I think that could be expanded to 18 months.
Which would mean we would stay in the front while they're doing the back and move in the back while you're doing the front, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so obviously that's would be my choice, but again, we have to think about whether it's financially feasible and.
We've done other projects where, like, school districts rent portable classrooms and they put a bunch of them together and create this big space. We could do something like that in the field and set up a temporary library while the contractors have this building to themselves. I don't know if there's a vacant space in town where we could set up a temporary library, but we're doing that in other communities. As was mentioned, there's advantages.
There is no other vacant spaces.
Well, there are advantages to both approaches. if you let the contractor have the whole building, they can get it done quicker, faster, cheaper. But you're working out of a temporary, probably a smaller space for a period of time. If you phase it, the library's in the building all the time, but you're in the middle of a construction site. And, you know, there's gonna be dust on your car, and, I mean,
There's pros and cons involved. We plan to do a cost analysis on multiple methods of doing it and then making a decision based on that cost analysis.
The one thing, though, that will not happen is the library will not shut down. We have yet to work for a public library that has told us it's okay to shut us down for a year and a half. And Terry certainly said that from us from day one. Whatever we do, the library stays open. You may have some limited services, or it may be a little cramped in a few spots.
But as some of you already know, we share the collection with 54 other libraries. So even if we're in a trailer and we only have our new books out, if you want something else, you ask for us, and then Tyrell comes over on the ferry in his little blue van and brings it in a day and a half, 2 days. So it's not going to really hurt the quality of the materials you'll be able to get. It'll just change some programming and just space if we are in a temporary space.
Talk to use the town's building next door.
Use that one?
Just renovate it.
We'll jump in there.
Yes?
Where are you gonna put the book sale room?
My idea with the book sale room is because it's turned into a meeting room since in the last couple of years and less of a book sale room. And you know that Sandra is keeping that free book card up front. I would like to have one of the small meeting rooms. I don't know if you guys remember this, but at Rogers, the small meeting room has bookshelves around a couple of sides, and then they have a box that it's honor system, and that's where they put the really good donated books, and the rest would be donated somewhere else.
I have another question. It worries me, the meeting room, which I think is very important, it's long and narrow. Where is the screen going to be? Because if I come in late and have to sit in the back of a long, narrow room, I'm not going to be able to see what's going on up here.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that. My guess is the screen would probably not be on one of the short ends. It would probably be on one of the long ends, and the seating would be arranged around it. But it's a good point. We'll take a close look at that.
Yeah, you've got all this wonderful windows.
Yes.
Maybe you'll have to eliminate some of them.
Yes, we might. We'll take a look. In the back.
I walked in again, sorry to be a couple minutes late. I heard the word solar, and then you talked about a green building and the parking lot design. Is there any talk about putting charging stations for electric vehicles?
That's I've been working, I was just at a meeting yesterday with one of the county executive representatives, and they're trying to help us basically pay for electrical vehicle charging stations. Suffolk Cooperative Library System is dedicating a certain amount of the construction funds next year to that. We would probably only want to get maybe 2, but yeah, no, I'm moving forward with that, hoping to mix it into this whole process to get the funds from the county.
There may be
a little
federal
slippery,
funds.
but it's, you know, we've spent about a year talking to representatives from the county executive's office, and they're trying to get all of the libraries to work with the county to have those charging stations so they can charge their vehicles at night. But I don't think that's the huge here. I don't think it's a big thing here, but I do want to have the electrical, because I think the state has said by 2040 they're not going to be selling gas cars anymore, 2050, something like that. So I think it's an important thing. And then the design does have solar on these. It's not on these renderings, but it's on these renderings on the south side, is it?
Yeah, it shows up here, but I think on the site plan, since it's south face, we can incorporate solar into the roof.
Do you know how much percent of the electric use that would accommodate as far as?
It'll be a fraction.
Right.
We've done it on much bigger roofs than this, and it contributes. It does certainly help.
Right.
It helped more 8 years ago when the state was actually providing grants to underwrite the cost of installing it, but once that stopped, the cost of installing the solar panels and the actual payback from them, instead of paying for themselves in 3 years, it's now more like 10 years. So
And they're only good for 20.
hopefully the cost of the panels themselves are going to continue to come down and it'll be more affordable. But right now it's not a slam dunk.
But there may be opportunities in the federal budget, that big package that was passed, what, 6 months ago?
They were saying at the meeting yesterday, there's gonna be money from the infrastructure, there's gonna be money from COVID funds, there's money in the state.
Right.
It's just, who can point me in the right direction and who will help me do this? I need to have someone volunteer to be my grant writer, I guess, but there's definitely stuff out there.
Yeah, I think that's part of our process to go through with the library of looking at all these different programs and at least providing all that necessary information to get those grants or get the funding as you need to support these different pieces. I mean, we would want to do them either way. It's just if we can help offset the cost also as part of the construction.
You know, call Field's office, because the state just passed this environmental bill. And they have to know.
Yeah, I'll call front, yeah.
So let them do the work for you.
Yeah, and also they may have funds that they can give us. So, and then New York State Education Department has construction funds that we can apply for every year. So there's different funding sources out there that we can go for other than, asking all of you.
I have a question, it's probably for Terry, not for you. But the expansion of the building would indicate an expansion of staff. Certainly, I know you've long sought to have a young adult librarian, or at least a full-time coverage in the children's and young adult area. Are there any other places where you think you might need to augment some of the staff in order to fill the new space, make the best use of it?
The way I'm looking at it right now, the way they have designed this, is someone can sit in the children's area and look across to the young adult area. Someone can sit in the young adult area and look across to the children's area. They come at different times. What I think I'm going to need to do is hire an afternoon young adult librarian. I don't think anything else is going to be required as long as I can get a full-time adult reference librarian back. We have our Jocelyn's out right now, but if she comes back, we will need somebody in behind that glass wall to take care of the people that are reading by the fireplace. But I don't think we'll need more CERC people. It'll be Laura and I, and Jeremy will continue to be his after school 2 hours a day, but hopefully not in the closet. And I think it's going to be a very similar staff with maybe one afternoon person just to handle the flow in the two children's areas.
Yeah, if the library's planned right, it shouldn't require more staff unless there's other things, other functions that you're going to try to offer to the community. And the same would go with the cost of operating the building. The fact that the building's getting bigger, it's also getting much, much more efficient. I mean, the technology in this building, the glazing, the boilers, the lighting, it'll all be upgraded. We'll have LED lighting everywhere. We'll have high efficiency boilers, high efficiency mechanical equipment. The insulation in the windows and the walls will be light years from what it was in this original building. So we find that we'll double the size of a library, but the cost to operate it in terms of gas and oil and electric will probably be the same or very close to what it was, just because it's a much more efficient building.
And then the elevators in the same place, is it the same elevator, or do you anticipate having to replace that?
Same.
It's the same elevator right now, but it's something we discussed too.
But we kind of want to try to keep the elevator if we can, just because it's not that old. If it works, we'll keep it. Yeah, we like that.
I have a couple of questions. How much of the existing infrastructure are you replacing?
Well, as Chris mentioned earlier, the building itself is pretty solid. It's in great condition. The structure, the skin. We're going to upgrade the mechanical systems. We're going to put in new lighting.
Windows?
So do we have budgeted replacing windows, or are we keeping
I have to take a look at that. I'm not sure about the existing windows.
I think that's an option we're looking at.
Some of the windows are upstairs were put in, I believe, in 22, 12 maybe, but I'm not really sure about their efficiency. So I'm not sure how, it might be smarter to replace them with better windows.
So
Yeah.
I had a couple of questions for Terry. One, you explained the need for additional spaces. Could you just comment on, because people will ask, people who aren't here will ask,
Yes.
why you can't satisfy some of that need utilizing other facilities that are on the island?
We have,
And secondly,
yes,
could
okay.
you just describe the timeline?
The timeline for doing this?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, from where
at
we
this
are.
point, our vote is to take place on June 17th. Once we get all the numbers from Derek and figure out financing and what debt service is gonna be, then we will know what's gonna happen with that. So June 17th, any luck we start construction maybe fall?
No, that's probably too aggressive. I think
Very optimistic.
we'd be out to bid, let's say by winter. You know,
Build in spring.
permits and all of that so that we could start construction spring of 2024. And then with Derek's schedule, you'd be opening a library fall of 2026.
Okay.
Right.
You gotta do it before I get too old, you guys. And then in terms of why we can't do this by using other spaces, we have tried to use some other spaces. We tried to do a couple of programs over in the auditorium. It just doesn't work. It's too big and it's dark and it just doesn't work for the library programs. We have gone over across the street a couple times. It just, the facilities aren't what we need to do what we want to do. We had never tried the fire department, and I think it was mostly because the stairs are really bad there. They do have an elevator, but so those are the spaces that come to mind initially of places. You know, we collaborate, so we'll go over to Sylvester Manor to do our story time, and that's fine. We can do things with other people and collaborate, but there's something about coming to the library. If you come to the library for a program, you're gonna also walk through our collection and you might say, oh, I wanted to take this book out, or look, the Library of Things has a VCR. I wanna watch something on my old, TV, or no, actually not a VCR, we have a DVD player. Another generation. So there are things that are here in the library that I want people to be able to have access to, that if I'm over in the Legion, you're not going to be able to have access to that here. So we're not just a program. When you come here for a program, you see other things, you do other things. So I think it's important to be able to have that space in the library. Also, we've been offering things that other people haven't been able to offer. And we need that space here. Some of those quiet meeting rooms, right now people are doing their passports kind of in the middle of Jeremy, Laura, and I, with people wandering around, right, Kim? And so it's just, it should be much more private experience to have your passport done. You know, if I'm notarizing for you, you shouldn't be doing it in the middle of the table by the newspapers up there. So there are spaces that we don't have for services that we provide that we should have. Is that a good answer? Okay. Anybody else? Yes.
I just want to thank you for what I think is a very helpful presentation, and I certainly have learned a lot, and I support your project.
Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you so much.
I just ask that before you leave, you take a look at these wonderful paintings of
Yeah, there we go.
of the animals.
There are cards from the artist.
Okay. Also, we want to see if any of our, Sandra or Ed, do you have any questions? I don't know why I'm looking at you because you can't see me. Okay, I'm not hearing from Sandra and Ed. I don't think we have anybody else on Zoom right now. This is going to be recorded, and we will have it up on our YouTube channel. We will, we're about to develop a page on our website for all of this material, so you'll be able to access it. And if anybody asks you, tell them to come see me. If I hear anybody talking out by the surf desk, I go out and just go on and on and on about these things. So I'm more than happy to talk to anybody that wants to come talk to me about this. I do think it would be such a benefit to this community. I mean, at some point, I'm going to retire and go sit on Lisa's front porch, and you will still have this library. It'll still be your library. It's not, It's not for me, it's not for these guys, it's for your community. Yes.
I'm a member of the library board, and I just want to say that this project is a result of input from the community. It's what you want, and the board and the gentleman in front of the room have endeavored to make that as economically and ecologically feasible as possible. And I think that they've done a really good job with it. We've done a lot of homework, but based on the input from the community. It's not just saying, well, we're going to build this and maybe the people will come. Oh no, this is what you want, and this is what we're trying to do.
Thank you all for coming, I really appreciate your time, and anybody has any ideas, come see me. Come to my messy office with no closet, and I would love to visit with you and take any ideas. The reason we have that cafe up there is because I had a number of people come in and say there's no place to get a cup of coffee in the center. So that's why that was slotted in last week, the little area, and we'll talk to a local vendor about it, and it will be kept within a local business we'll be running. So, thank you.